fans. Welcome to Manhattan Beach Studios here in Los Angeles, California. I'm Megan Burgdorf with another episode of Grit. Today we're talking about the NCAA National Championships for the collegiate women's side. And I have a very special guest with us, probably one of the greatest beach volleyball coaches of all time, Miss Anna Collier.
Well, Megan, let's not go the greatest, but thank you for that compliment. I am so pleased to be here. But I have to tell you, this picture of Gulf Shores behind me makes me nervous because every time you're going to the Gulf Shore, it is so nerve-wracking because you want to win an NCAA championship and everybody's there and everybody wants that big trophy. So I'm feeling good, but
Getting the jitters.
It's getting a little
It's
jittery.
coming up,
next week.
Yeah, it's the road to Gulf Shores to the national championships. And you've been part of founding the entire sport of beach volleyball in the collegiate space and building this national championship. Obviously a veteran in winning it multiple times. Tell me a little bit about the history of the national championships and the growth of sport.
Okay, so I was hired 2011, July 1 at USC. 2012 was basically the first season. It was an emerging sport. So that means the AVCA put it on emerging sport, the NCAA says okay, and we had about 17 or 18 schools that first year. Amazing. The AVCA ran the championship and we had 4 teams. They brought 2 from the West and 2 from the East. Okay, so let's move forward.
Because we've grown a lot. It's the
lot.
fastest growing sport in NCAA history.
Exactly. So now we have 92 NCAA teams that are eligible for the championship. In the fall of 2015, there were 50 teams which are sponsoring beach volleyball. That's 10 more than the NCAA needed to make it a championship sport. So 2015, they decided, okay, we're going to do this. And they moved to a double elimination 8-team bracket. So let's keep moving, right?
Keep growing.
So as we come up here now, we have 17 teams that are going to be going and battling for that trophy. We have conference champions. So we'll have 8 of those. We'll have 4 from the West, 4 from the East, and then we'll pretty much have the rest at large berths. So my thing right now is the Pac-12 is looking really strong.
It's super strong. It's totally stacked, packed with talent across the board. And last year they took 3 teams out of the Pac-12, was it?
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to sneak.
I'm looking at 4 or 5 this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's so strong with, Stanford beating the 1s and the 2s, UCLA and SC, and Cal's in there. And ASU with Coach Rohr is having a magnificent season and taking down some good teams. So I don't know. I'm kind of going with maybe 5 out of the Pac-12 because it's really strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about how the AVCA helped start the national championship. So I know you won the title back when it was the AVCA. Talk to us a little bit about that experience and how the setup and the growth of the championship started.
Well, okay. So when I look at this picture and I think back to that first championship, people were beach chairs, towels, there were no stands, there were, no huge crowds. It was like the local people, and Gulf Shores has supported this probably more than I've seen any city. Even if you look at Huntington and some of our local places, Gulf Shores, Alabama has come out and supported this event. So everybody would know our names, and it was such a more personal thing because it was small. Then the last time that I was there, I was like, what happened? It threw up NC2A. There's banners, there's stands, there's boom cameras, there's, everything that you would see at a FIVB or AVP tournament. So that changed everything. Now you had to have a pass to get in. Like before, you just walk in and go, hey, what's up? Here we are. But now you have passes, you have gates, you have everything that's kind of, making it that championship feeling.
Yeah. So as they build, and we're coming up to, conference championships are all this weekend taking place, what are coaches doing now? So those that have been there, you're a veteran, so you know what it took to learn how to win. but also for new coaches that are figuring this whole thing out. So as they're going through their conference championships, what are coaches thinking? What's their life like?
Okay, like the jitters with this picture back here, they're pretty jittery. But I think, they're really concentrating on the conference championship because if you can get that automatic qualifier, you want that. You don't want to sit around Sunday going, are they going to pick us? So I think right now, most coaches, head coaches, are like, okay, let's focus on this conference. Let's get this done first. And then I think maybe at night, they're looking at film from every other conference. They're pulling up film from their matches with the other schools that are doing well in the conferences and trying to get a plan together and in their head go, okay, are we going to play this team? We could play this team, and then get themselves prepared. But the athletes, they're focused on that conference championship right now. I think you get them mentally prepared for the conference championship the same way you would for the NC2As. So they're mentally preparing them. Okay, we've gone all season. This is what we worked for. Mm-hmm. This standard of winning this is the standard we've set. Now we can take that into the NC2A. So it's the championship mindset and getting them prepared to be champions. And then once they win the conference or get in a good spot, then they're like, okay.
Reset.
Reset.
Redo.
Now we're going to head into Gulf Shores, which could be thunderstorms, windstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes. Like it could be anything. So you have to keep them in that championship mindset.
That's really interesting. And two things come to mind. One, how do you manage the student athlete experience? Because they're still students coming up to finals, some of them, depending on what institution they're in. And then also how you prepare to play in different conditions. Specifically, you had the experience playing in a facility inland, and then you're going to a wild, ravenous beach. So let's talk about the first one.
Okay, so first of all, for us at USC, our finals are literally during the NC2A championship.
Which is crazy.
It's crazy.
That they have to perform in both,
right,
athletics.
In the classroom and athletics. And most of the professors wanted, even though we're on East Coast time, they wanted the final to be taken and proctored by a compliance officer at the exact same time the class is taking the final. So every once in a while, I'd be like, well, we're kind of on court 3 at that time. So can we, find a different time? Sometimes we'd be on the airplane. And that was the time that they had to take their finals. So the proctor and the athlete would go sit next to each other and literally take their final on their way to Gulf Shores. So for us, that was really a challenge. We had to make sure that they understood, look, school is just as important. So let's not forget that you're taking a final here and you have to do well. Then we'll move forward and change the mindset into volleyball. So that was tough for us. And so for me, I have a little different philosophy. We trained
of course you do.
Yes, we trained at USC, which everybody knows is enclosed and pretty much, no wind, no nothing, pretty stable. Then we'd go to Gulf Shores. I always believe that if you're technically sound, you're technically sound. So it was more of a mind game to deal with the weather than a skill game. And I would constantly say, okay, your jump serve into the wind is the same jump serve that you use at our stadium, and it was difficult because they would have some problems with that because it is in your face, a big wind. So finally I started going, Monday, the week of, so that we could.
That was my next question.
Yes.
How early do you get there?
Yeah, as soon as you can. So that you can train in those conditions. And that's what we started doing. And, I know Dane's doing the same thing. So that, yes, you're technically sound, it's going to work, wind or not, but you have to have that experience. The other thing we did was we would go down to the beach once a week on Saturdays, but we'd go in the morning, so we're not really seeing that kind of wind. So I would just keep reminding them of their technical standards that they set for themselves and as a team, and don't change it. maybe in the win we bring the set down, maybe in the win we keep our hand higher on a jump serve. And interestingly enough, one of the years that I won it, Nicolette Martin served 2 aces out in the win for us to win a national championship against Pepperdine. So I was like, okay.
It worked.
It worked.
Well, let's keep talking about coaching. So if you're not familiar, there are 5 pairs competing, and a team must win 3 of the 5 pairs to win that national championship. Most programs have a head coach and assistant coach. Some might be lucky to have 2 assistant coaches.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit and share with our followers, how do you manage where the coaches are going and who they're coaching through conference championships and national championships?
Okay, so that kind of depends on, first of all, if you're running 3 courts or 5 courts. So if you're running 3 courts at a time, or 2 courts going, 1 and 2 first round and then the next 3, you're okay, because then each court will get a coach. Run into complications when 5 courts are running simultaneously. So first, during the season, I would ask my athletes, who do you feel most comfortable with in your box? Who would you like to coach you, and why? Don't just say, hey, I want him because, he likes me. It has to be coaching strategies. So that's the first thing I would do. Then the second thing I would do, I would ask the coaches, who do you feel most comfortable with? Why? What do you bring to the table? What can you do in the box for this team versus another? Now, I was fortunate enough that Sarah Hughes and Kelly Chang played for me at the ones. So if we were kind of going to run a 5 court, I would leave them alone. I would feel confident enough that they could win. And then I would usually start on the 2s, and I would split the 2s and the 5s. Because you can leave the box and go to another box during the match. So I would kind of do 2s and 5s and then leave the 3s and 4s with I always had the 2 assistants. So that was my philosophy and how I utilize my coaching staff. Now, if you don't have that team that you feel confident with, then another coach has to take 2 courts and then go from one court to the other.
And you can pop in and out of boxes often.
Yes, you can pop in and out, but what you can't do is stop. Like, I can't all of a sudden go up to the back of a court because I was on this court. I have to keep moving and get into that box and immediately start coaching.
And looking at that photo behind us, it makes it very difficult at national championships to also see the scoreboard and know when to go, when to stay, that kind of chess match.
Well, that's a really good point, too, because I used to say to our team, okay, don't look up at the scoreboard. Well, isn't that the worst thing a teacher or a coach can say? Don't. So everybody's looking at the scoreboard because it's so hard not to, you want to know what's happening on the 2s or the 4s or, and then it just gets in your head. So it was another training situation for our championship mindset. Stay on your court and I'll do the running back and forth. And here's a cute little story. The courts and the banners didn't have an opening. Exactly. And so, as we all know, I'm 102, and I would go from court to court, and I was like, excuse me.
I need to get in there, please.
I need to get in there. And so I said something to one of the referees, and they were so gracious and so kind. So then, and I think to this day, there is an opening. So you can go in and out quickly. Like, you're looking at the court and you're trying to jump a banner. I'm like, okay, not working for me. But they changed that. That may be a Collier rule that you have an opening. And I really appreciated it.
Yeah. And the sport has grown. The national championships have grown. Now we're working on a single elimination format.
Ooh.
So there's, starts on Thursday, goes Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. So there's no second chance here. And that was different when you coached. You had to potentially lose, come back and win it all. What's the mindset of a coach going in to prepare your team? How early do you arrive? What are those nuggets of success that you found over multiple national championships that really aided to teeing up your team to be ready to compete and fight for that title?
Well, first of all, the double elimination benefited us. One year we lost first round to Stetson and came all the way back up through the losers to get into the finals. So when I think about a single elimination tournament, you're right. The coaches have to have a completely different game plan. You know, like, and I remember clearly saying, look, we have to come strong, we have to do all this, and then the next thing I know, we're coming through the contenders bracket. So for coaches now, I think it's the same thing that I said prior, like we look at the conference championships. We don't look beyond. So I think really you have to absolutely look at the team that's lined up because there's so many good teams. And you can, you know, on any given day, as all know in sport, you can go down. So I think it just brings it down into one match at a time, like one duel at a time. You know, we're not going to even think about anything else. We have to do film on this team. We're going to go after this girl. We're going to change this. We're going to play that chess match. If they come after you, then we're going to do this for that one match because it's so different in single elimination. And as beach volleyball players and coaches, we're pretty used to a double elimination, you know, like that's what we grew up with. So coaches have to learn to change their thinking to, okay,
it's one and done. It's
yes,
showtime.
And it's 1 point at a time. Win the side, win the point. We can't even look at the whole duel or the whole match. You have to focus on each side, each point, and then all of a sudden when you look up and you're like, oh,
we're there.
Okay, who's next?
Next, please. So talking a little bit about that and maybe educating our coaches, what happens in the team huddle before a national championship? What's the conversations going on in the player's box? How do you handle timeouts? What's the, you know, coach conversation airtime, player airtime? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, for me in the huddle before, I always let the captains do that because you know, they have the pulse. They have the team on their backs with them. They know that they can help them. So for us in the huddle before with the whole team, the captains would say, okay, we've got this, we're gonna do this, and I would be out. So really what they said, I don't know. I'm assuming, yeah, let's call them. I'm assuming that, you know, that's what they did. So I really appreciate that because, you know, it's them that has to win. It's their peers and their teammates that have to win, and I think they can get them ready better than anybody. And then I used to have the strength and conditioning coach come in and, you know, warm them up and then give them a little huddle on, you know, you're fit, you're strong, you've done the work, here we go. So I really like the fact that they would come in and do that. Then the captains, and then we'd break off to the courts. Now, I'm a coach that believes strongly in the work has to be done at practice. So I'm not like, oh, get your hand on the ball. I mean, those days are gone. So when we do the walk and talk, I'm usually very positive on what's happening. Let's say we're winning. And I'm like, okay, we're winning. Let's continue doing the same thing. Like, there's no reason to change this. You know, we're winning this match. We're winning this set. Let's continue down the same path. Then, let's say we're in the box and we're in a tight situation and perhaps we are down. I have them first talk to each other. Like, okay, what's going on with you? How are you feeling? And then what's going on with you? And, you know, they know it's a sentence or two that I need help with my set. I can't see the court, you know, and then I'll say, okay, so what can you do to help set her? And then she'll say, well, do I bring it down? What do I do? Then, okay, what's going on with you? Well, I need a pass that's 3 feet off the net, you know, it's too tight. So that they're working through it together. And then after they do that, then of course, I tell them exactly what to do. So glad we heard that from you.
But here's what to do as the third eye and teammate on the court.
Exactly, and that's the third eye. That's what's so helpful is that, you know, you can literally say, the line is open. It's open the whole time. She's calling line. It's okay to go line 10 times in a row if it's going down. You know, it's like it's going down. They're like, oh, well, maybe I'll cut it. if you're winning and doing well and the ball is going down, stay down that path until that chess piece is moved. Now you can move it. So then that's I'll come as that third eye, but very much at the very end, because I believe strongly in they got to figure it out. So
the autonomous athlete.
Yeah,
Figure out their
definitely.
solution.
Isn't that Socrates or something?
Yeah,
kind of
right?
method.
Well, we're getting into our philosophy lessons. Let's talk a little bit about the role the other teammates have. So you have 5 pairs competing. Yes, they're needing to perform to win the national championship. But what's the value, what's the asset of all the other players on that roster that are traveling down? And what role do they play?
Well, it's, what is it, 6-man on the bench in basketball or whatever? It's so important. Now, remember, when the NCAA started this, nobody had played 5-team match play. I mean, it just wasn't heard of. So when you were playing, it was you and me. You're going to go after that team. And then afterwards, we'd go over and sit and have our lunch. And nobody was coming to cheer for us because everybody there was competing against us. So in the beginning, I didn't understand that because I had come from just regular, doubles. And after the first year, I was like, okay, this is a team. This is a different culture than just beach volleyball on the beach. And that second year, the first year, I was a mess. And I admit it, and we didn't do as well. And the piece that was missing is the culture. And that culture is exactly what you're talking about. When it comes down to the 5s or the 2s or whoever to win the duel, when your team comes over and surrounds those banners, I have goosebumps. It's the picture, I'm saying. I can't, I may not be in the box at that match, but even if I was, I would just feel this electricity come up. And then if I was in the box, I'm in the middle of our team, I'm like, we got this. Simply because this team is like, okay, let's go. And the energy and the excitement, and then the spectators, and it just builds and builds and builds. And what I really love is so as you know, in beach volleyball, we switch sides. So there may be 15 of us, and it's here's the other team, 15 in blue that you're wearing that I'm not happy about, and then 15 of us in cardinal. And as the team switches, we got to all walk right past each other to the other side. And it's just okay, I'll be your friend tomorrow, but right now
we're trying to win.
We're trying to win. And just that switch of energy, everybody's so respectful, and they just switch, and then they just start going crazy. And I loved it. I mean, I can't tell you how joyful it is to see women connecting like that and being part of a team and understanding that we are on that court with the 5 pairs or the 2s or the 1s. And then when you win, the dog pile is the best thing ever.
Unless you're at the very bottom.
Yeah. And a couple of times, I think Sophie and Nicole ended up at the bottom get off us.
Okay, get off. Let's talk a little bit about the physical preparation outside of just on the court and skills based. So you have your extended team. You bring your strength and conditioning, maybe a nutritionist. What's it like off the court, prehab, rehab, recovery, eating out, in Gulf Shores? What's that like when they're not competing or taking finals?
Or taking finals. I know. How crazy is that? Well, for me, I always have said to any strength and conditioning coach I have, you're more important than I am. Because basically, if you're technically sound, but you can't physically get to that ball, it doesn't really matter how technically sound you are, because you have to be fit enough, strong enough. I can teach you technique to have a fast arm swing, put your hand in your left pocket, all those things. But if you're not physically strong enough to put some heat on that ball, it doesn't really matter. So every time we would win, I would give kudos to that strength and conditioning. So now, what I feel the best coaches do best is they taper and they come to a peak. Now, a little difficult to peak.
Conference championships.
And then, NC2As. It obviously can be done, but that strength and conditioning coach has to know the cycles and where we are, and I'd always
And
be
each
like,
athlete.
yeah, and each athlete and the difference.
And
So
probably blending in with your PT or athletic trainer as
right.
well, having the conversations of how to keep that athlete primed.
And healthy,
Yeah.
and shoulders, knees, hips. I mean,
Mhm.
they're kind of sore all the time. So it was interesting with my teams. We would be probably a week before the championships. They'd be like, "Coach, I can't walk. I can't jump. Help." And I'm like, "Just wait. Just wait. It's going to be okay. We're going to get you rehab. We're going to make sure that everything feels good." And what I did was I always surprised them with massages.
Oh.
And it was so cute because I would just go, "Okay, we're all going to go in this room now." And they're like, "Oh, God, Collier's going to give another speech." And I had set up all these massage tables. So I felt strongly that that was something that they needed to help get them to that peak performance. So you have to make sure that the nutritionist knows,
Mhm.
okay, first of all, it's hot, humid, windy, whatever. So we got to hydrate. We got to hydrate differently. We got to eat. Okay, when we first go to Gulf Shores, I mean, I love the place, but to find something that wasn't a fried food
Yep.
was really difficult.
Mhm.
Now it's grown so much, you can get some good. So we would bring a lot of our own foods. We would grocery shop so that we could get as much healthy foods as we could, because going out in Gulf Shores at that point was, the Southern food, and it was, my team was like, not feeling that, coach. So again, I learned that. Like in the first couple of years, I made that mistake that, yeah, we got to find the right foods. So I learned that. And then you have the sports psych, which is amazing because we used them all year long. And then they would start the championship before the conference conversations and the pairing conversations. And they would carry that right into Gulf Shores. And then if somebody was having, some issue or something they needed to talk about,
It was already addressed.
yes. And they were the expert. Now, I think I'm the expert. I don't have those diplomas. So for us, we were fortunate enough to be able to have that kind of a support team that
Well, and
could
it sounds like you used your entire team.
exactly, because I believe strongly in all those different aspects. It's not me and the team. There's so much that goes into it, and it's like holistic, and it's like we do yoga sometimes when they were sore. I was like, okay, give me a yoga teacher right now. And they're like, "Coach," and I go, "We're doing yoga."
Yeah.
Just to, change it up and get them massages and make them excited, make it different.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds as a head coach, you're also pulled in all different directions. Not only are you expected to perform as the best coach in the best moment, but also there's media, there's
Yes.
TV, there's credentialing, there's operational organization. How does a coach handle all that? And you have interviews, you have cameras in your face. Now you have NIL. I mean, what are some of these extra attentions? What's it like dealing with that?
Well, for us, again, we had a PR guy, that came with us that, would be a sports information director. I don't think that's his title, but he would come and we would look at the schedule and we would pick times where they could be interviewed so that it didn't interrupt. And it wasn't easy because, especially that
Collier,
yeah,
for the longest time.
and especially when we went into the contenders that first year, I'm like, nobody talked to anybody because we like back to back to back. But you have to. That grows the sport. Without the TV, without the stories, without the interesting pieces, who wants to really watch beach volleyball? I want to watch Sarah, who's got this story, or, Susie, who has this story. So we would kind of schedule it very clearly when we had time. And usually they'd have a little tent behind and they would want to talk right after a match. And so Jeremy, who was my person, would come to me and go, "Okay, they want Susie and Janie after this match out there." And so when the match was over, I'd go over to them and say, "Okay, when you're ready, make sure you do cool down, talk to your trainer, whatever you need, then you need to go to this tent." So it was disruptive, but I tried to organize it as much as I could so it wasn't as disruptive. And the finals was just a nightmare. I just, one year we got there and somebody had to have a final and I couldn't find a court and, we were running around trying to get this all set, and then they went to take the finals and That's the year that I learned you can't go on like Wednesday or Tuesday. You've got to take the time and money and energy to get there earlier to be prepared, because preparation is everything.
Yeah. Well, and if you're competing on Thursday, you're planning to arrive on Monday. That gives you a few days with the
Right.
time difference, the weather conditions, settling, doing recon of the area. There's a lot that goes into winning a title. And you probably finished playing your conference championships on Sunday.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Selection Sunday now.
Yeah.
So tell us what Selection Sunday means for coaches and programs.
Well, you never know, right? Like you could think, okay, we're the best team in the country and, you know, we got second in our conference. I'm sorry, something happened. Do we go? So first of all, it's nerve-wracking. Second of all, I would always go through it and go, okay, this team, so I would not be surprised. Okay, I don't know what year it was, but this is so funny. We're sitting in a room, it's on the TV, and they're doing the seating. And I'm like, we're number one. Yeah, not a problem. And our tech guy puts it up and he plays it, and then Florida State is the number one seed. And I am like, there's video all over the place of me just like, what? Like, just perfect example. That's a scary Sunday. So I said to the tech guy, oh, that's not funny. Like, I kept going, Humberto, you got to change that. That's not right. And the team was just like, coach, it's all right. I'm like, no. Number 2 seed, USC. And I was like, I have never been so shocked in my life. And I believe for that entire show that was a joke on me by my team and the tech guy. Oh my goodness. So nerve-wracking, number one. Because it depends on the seed you come in too. Like if you have a vision of somewhere, like we came in at 2, so we're playing totally different teams that I hadn't prepared for. Like no, we're going to be the 1 seed. So that's nerve-wracking.
Because you don't have a lot of time. It's
no.
Sunday, 11 a.m., I think, Eastern time.
Right.
And you're flying out on Monday morning,
Right.
and you have to get all the film and prep your team. So you're working overtime, kind of crushing it on that Sunday.
Yeah.
Starting to prepare that pathway once it's posted. There's 17 teams this year.
Yes. So exciting.
I want to hear your picks. I think you have a list that I've seen.
I think I did a list. Okay.
Let's run through, because we have 9 conferences? 8 conferences.
8 conferences. So we have
automatic qualification.
Right. So here's my picks in no order whatsoever. My personal opinion, which means nothing. USC is going to win the Pac-12s. Automatic. UCLA.
No bias there.
No.
That's why I'm wearing blue, just for neutrality.
UCLA. Stanford. Cal. LMU, West Coast Conference. Cal Poly, Big West. Long Beach. FSU, Coastal Collegiate Sports Association. TCU, Conference USA. LSU.
You missed one.
FSU?
Oh, no, we said that one, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, TCU.
I always have to correct her.
I know. She's always right, if you haven't noticed.
TCU, LSU, Georgia State, Sun Belt,
Yep.
Stetson, Atlantic Sun, Tennessee Martin, Ohio Valley, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, Southland Conference. Now, this is where I had some thinking. ASU, there's my 5th team in the Pac-12. I think Hawaii has some big wins and some losses, but I think they're going to be okay. And my final team.
The roll, wild card.
FIU.
Oh, new to the championship bracket.
Yep. I think that's it. So I have the conference champions, I have the West, I have the East, and then my at-large.
I love it. This is a good list.
Oh my gosh. Like, this is going to be amazing.
Teams. I mean,
so many.
I think with the sport of beach volleyball and how it's grown at the collegiate game, we used to have a few teams in it. Now rosters are getting stacked. They're getting at least 3 solid pairs, and that's what you need to win it.
Right.
And there's really good kids across that entire roster. And I think a little bit. I know we're kind of post-COVID clog,
Yeah.
but we had a lot in the transfer portal, a lot of fifth years, a lot of
Yeah.
stacked seniors coming through this entire
A
roster.
lot of seniors.
And people playing on the World Tour. The
Oh,
Pro
how about
Beach
the
Tour.
yeah, like out of NC2A, you have the number 1 and number 2 teams in the USA who are
Megan.
no
Oh, Sarah, Kristen and Taryn
from LSU
from
and
LSU, and Sarah and Kelly from USC.
USC. Okay, now we go to
Well, Tina's
Latvia.
there. Yeah, Tina.
go over
Gradina.
here,
Mhm.
and then it's looking kind of good for Canada. And
Sophie Bukovic.
there you go, all collegiate players.
Yes, and we have a few on the World Tour right now from Spain that are
Yes.
taking an Olympic gap year. There's a few athletes doing that too.
And they should be Olympians.
Yes.
So there's 2 more from TCU.
Hmm.
Anyone else?
FIU has some on there that are on the World Tour for sure. We have Meg Craft and Lexi. Deanberg.
Yes.
Mhm,
That's
out of UCLA.
amazing when you think about what do we just list? 2, 4, 6, 8, like 10
Mhm.
on the World Tour or going to compete in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I say you all get in our pocket and follow us while we're at Gulf Shores, Alabama.
It's going to be great. ABCA's coaches top 20 poll pits USC, UCLA, Stanford, Florida State, and Cal Poly as our top 5. Anna, who's your pick for the national championship?
I hate to say it.
Not going to be a surprise.
Fight on. Fight
Guys,
on.
Fight on. Make sure you follow us. We're going to go down to Gulf Shores, Alabama together. On
Unbelievable.
Grit. Yeah, we're taking the show on the road. We'll be down there keeping you up to date. Stay tuned and make sure you like and subscribe here on Grit. Thanks for joining us today.
Make that.